Move on then to national security.
Yeah, very, very much related to what I've been talking about earlier in relation to the Starmer update on terrorism, the willful conflation of several issues. But this has come from Dan Jarvis, the Minister for Security, and he has said in a tweet that hostile states are increasingly using security professionals in the UK to undermine our security. And he goes on to say that the right checks will help counter the threat and protect our national security. Now, is he necessarily speaking about this in response to an uptick in foreign interference, or is it simply to conform or indeed better coordinate the narrative in which we find ourselves, or at least many of us will find ourselves, trapped by offering dissenting voices towards the government? Nevertheless, he put this out on Monday of this week, and it's advice for security professionals in order that they tackle the threat from state actors. Of course, the inference, as I say, is that this is in response to an increase, though, that Jarvis does not actually substantiate that point at all, or even try to. But in his document, he says that work security professionals could take on to assist a foreign power in carrying out activities against the UK may include activity intended to sow discord, manipulate public discourse, discredit the political system, bias the development of policy, and otherwise undermine the safety or interests of the UK. Now, he also is putting the onus on the industry to report, and in particular to counter-terrorism policing. So asking individuals to suspect one another, something that we were asked to do back in 2020, and unfortunately an unhealthy number of people jumped at the chance to do so. Now, he uses phrases like intending to benefit a foreign power, but of course he doesn't explicitly say that there needs to be an identification of any link to such a foreign power. So it's easy to see already how this kind of legislation, which refers to the National Security Act 2023 is, of course, what it's all about. And as I say, it very much goes hand in glove with what will be the new terrorism policy and legislation, in that the authorities will be able to interpret any activity they choose as evidence of such an intent. Alongside this is a guide to the National Security Act 2023, which explains that the Act also covers activities intended to undermine our values and freedoms, that same phrase again, such as manipulating public discourse or threatening political dissidents in the UK, ranging from harassment to physical threats. Now, what I want to pick out of that is the reference to political dissidents, in that foreign political dissidents to regimes that are perceived to be hostile to the United Kingdom, for example, Russia, are protected, whereas, of course, the law is specifically designed and indeed being changed to capture political dissidents who are critical of the British regime from the inside. So quite the contradiction, not entirely unexpected. Now, since it's been used, the National Security Act has only been put into effect on a handful of occasions, but back in November I reported on the case of 3 individuals charged with relation to a case of espionage or foreign interference from China via Hong Kong. Noteworthy because one of the defendants, Matthew Trickett, was found dead in a park in Maidenhead very shortly after that charge, a death which is still listed as being unexplained. The trial is to develop further in the coming months, but as I said at the outset, it seems very likely that the conflation of 3 previously separate areas will absolutely continue, those being national security, terrorism and extremism, all of which are being woven into one gigantic net which may be cast over anyone that the state does not like.
Thank you, Charles. And just to finish then, we're going to talk about small farms now, because sadly Vanessa has not been able to join. I've got to skip over a little bit of content here, so we will